Hello, we are Samuel
Jorge
and Luca.
and today we are going to talk about the unit circle and why the sine is considered the y-coordinate and the cosine the x-coordinate.
and also we are going to talk about why the sign of the trigonometric ratios changes depending on the quadrant it is situated.
And finally, we're going to explain which are the trigonometric ratios of zero angles, 90 and 180, 270.
So first of all, we have to draw the unit circle that consists of a circle which its radius is equal to 1 unit. And then we have to draw the x and y axis. After we finish drawing the axis, we are going to draw a right triangle, whose angle we are calling it alpha. Now we are going to prove that the sine and cosine of this triangle is equal to the y and x coordinate, where the triangle intercepts the circle. We know that sine of alpha is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse, that in this case the opposite side is equal to y, and the hypotenuse is equal to 1, and y over 1 is equal to y. We also know that the cosine of alpha is equal to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse, that in this case the adjacent side is equal to x, and the hypotenuse is equal to 1, and x over 1 is equal to x. For that reason, we say that sine of alpha is equal to y and cosine of alpha is equal to x.
Now we are going to explain why the sign of the trigonometric ratios varies in each quadrant. We know that the y-axis corresponds to the sine and the x-axis to the cosine. And now we are going to look at the circle like it's a graph with coordinates, and now that we have this perspective, each quadrant that is behind of the y-axis is negative for the x-axis. And so for the y-axis, any angle behind the x-axis is negative sine, because as we explained earlier, the sine corresponds to the y-axis and the cosine to the x-axis. And that's the reason why the sign of the trigonometric ratios varies depending on each quadrant. I hope that it's been a clear explanation and you all understand it.
Now we are going to talk about trigonometric ratios of 0, 90, 180 and 270 degrees. Well, let's move on to the first. Now we are talking about 0 degrees. Sine of 0 degrees equals the y-coordinate, which is equal to 0 because we don't have y-coordinate. Cosine of 0 degrees equals the x-coordinate because we move exactly the radius to the right, so it's positive 1. And the tangent of 0 degrees equals sine over cosine. 0 over 1 equals 0. Now with 90 degrees, sine of 90 equals the y-coordinate, which is equal to 1 because we move the radius upwards. Cosine of 90 equals 0 because it's the x-coordinate and we don't have. And tangent of 90 equals sine over cosine, 1 over 0 equals infinite. Finally, here's a chart with all of the trigonometric ratios. Have you learned something of the video? Try by yourself calculating 180 and 270 trigonometric ratios.